This is X to Interact, and welcome to our personal Hyrule Historia, where we'll be linking back to the past in anticipation for the future release of Tears of the Kingdom. Here's the setup. Me, Steven, will be presenting a Zelda game in chronological order to my co-hosts, to which they'll give me a brief answer containing their history with the title, if any, and as a bonus, I'll give a fun fact about Zelda before I answer myself. I'm here with Eric and Gaff, and let's get into it. So first we have, on the chronological order, The Legend of Zelda, that came out in February 1986 on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Now, I'll ask you first, have either of you played this game? Like the original
Nada.
one? Okay.
Okay, so my history with this game is if you've ever played Super Smash Bros. Brawl, if you remember, that game had like a little section in it where you can like play demos for classic Nintendo games. Because if you remember, the Wii had the Virtual Console, and so those demos were kind of like, oh, here you can play like 3 minutes of this game or 5 minutes of the other game. So I played like I believe this game was in there. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was in there. And so I remember playing this, like that was like my first experience with like this original Zelda title. And like
Mm.
it wasn't too long. It was always timed. It was always like 3 minutes. So I'd always try to get as far as I could. And like it being like the very first Zelda game, it didn't really like guide you that much. You just get the sword from the old man in the cave, and then you're on your way. And so that's really my history with it. I know it's on the Nintendo Switch, the NSO app right now, but like I just haven't really like gone back to play that. I kind of feel like the earlier Zelda games are probably like pretty hard to get into without a guide nowadays. So that's my history with the first one there.
Okay, so, and according to GameSpot, it says the first Zelda game is one of the last, chronologically speaking. That's not all. The first two games take place in an alternate universe where Link failed to defeat Ganon in the Ocarina of Time, which was released later. Skyward Sword, meanwhile, is the first Zelda game chronologically in the timeline, right? So, of course, given the series' penchant for time travel, it's not a surprise that Zelda chronology is complicated, right? So, release date does not match up with chronological order in the timeline, which is, I think, made pretty late in the game for like a timeline.
Yeah, I think like the Zelda timeline. It's like I think like I believe like the story with the Nintendo was like kind of against a timeline, but after a while they just like kind of relented and like released one. And
Mhm.
even then, it's like pretty complicated if you look at it. It's like a lot of the stuff is like all over the place. There's there's like a branching timeline at some point, and then somehow it all reconnects back into Breath of the Wild, which we'll probably talk about later. So
Yeah.
it's a little weird.
All right, on to Zelda 2, which is also for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Now, this was, I don't know, I guess this is like a departure from the first one even. You know, they were just throwing stuff at the wall, it seems like, with this one. But anyways, what is your history, either of you two? Do you know about it, Gaff? Like, you've
Yes, I
seen it,
know.
right? You've seen
I
it,
know
you know.
there.
Yeah.
I know that Zelda 1 and Zelda 2 exists, and I wasn't even a thought in my parents' minds when these games came out.
Let's see,
Okay,
the
so no,
year, the
I didn't
release
play
year,
them.
1987 January. So indeed.
Yeah,
Eric.
let's say that's like 10 years before I was ever born. So
So
not even like in my bed in my dad is all I'm gonna say.
okay, so I didn't touch on the first one. My history with the first one was I played it at my grandpa's, first and second one rather. And both, I remember playing them back to back on the NES and being like, what the hell is this game? Because the first one, I didn't know what the hell to do, and I kept dying over and over again because I was super young. Obviously, I didn't play it on, I'm not that old, so I didn't play it on release date, but that, my history with that is like, it was one of the first ever games I got blessed. It's hard to believe.
I didn't say anything.
um, yeah, no, I played them back to back, and I just couldn't. I'm like, is this the same like Nintendo that I know? Because one of them is like sideways. There's got some weird attacks. There's some weird monsters, and it's like really difficult. I mean, they were both difficult, but somehow 2 was harder than the first one. I don't know. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
weird to think like that was the follow up. I guess, you know, maybe they were late in development with the second one before. I don't know what the history is that one. Another Zelda fact we have would be, and says, where is it? When I says the original prototype NES cartridge for The Legend of Zelda, the first one, is worth its weight in heart containers. The shiny gold plastic NES cartridge was special at time of release, but a more mundane yellow prototype cartridge recently sold on eBay for a cool $150,000. So that's, I don't know who would pay that much. Some super nerd. Good on them. Next in the release is The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Came out November 1991, so we had 4 years between releases there for the SNES. So your history at all with it? I know it has a good lineage. I think personally it's my favorite of the retro NES title, or sorry, SNES titles.
Yeah,
Eric.
and looking back on it, it's like if you look at it, it looks like it's the third title in the series, and like that's what a damn glow up, you know? Like compared to the first 2 games, like
Absolutely.
that's a wild like jump in quality right there. And then yeah, I think this might be another one where I played it first on Super Smash Bros. Brawl in the masterpiece section, but then my first like real like so I want to put this out there. I never really fully beat it. I got pretty close to it, but I did play like a majority of it on the Super Nintendo Classic that came out like a couple years ago. Was it a couple years ago? I feel like it came out like a while ago at this point. But yeah, I played like a lot of it on there, and like it was like a lot of fun to play there. Never got around to beating it because it was like a kind of like a family Nintendo kind of thing, but and I don't know where it is now. But yeah, I had like a fun time. It's also on the still what's I always forget what I'm like always blanking on the name, but like Nintendo Online service. It's on the Super Nintendo Classic one on there now too. So
Oh yeah.
that's also easy to access nowadays too.
NSO basically.
Yeah, the NSO
Yeah.
stuff is on there. Yep.
Um yeah, if you don't have like history with that, I'll go forward with our fact here. Have you played it at
I
all? Have you played it at all?
I've seen seconds of it as B-roll on other videos.
Fair.
I know it's
That's
a
the
good
fair
game.
one. Yeah.
That's all I got.
I think it's the best of the retro ones, personally. Like I was saying.
Yeah, like a lot of the not even just like Zelda, but like Metroid and Mario, like a lot of those SNES titles just like hold up super well, especially to
Yeah.
this day.
Just solidly designed games, honest. So our Zelda fact for this one is Zelda was named after Zelda Fitzgerald, the wife of great Gatsby author F. Scott Fitzgerald. Was inspired by that.
Wow.
So interesting inspiration. I'm not sure, you know, Miyamoto had some interesting ideas there. Next in the release, we have Link's Awakening, which came out in June 1993 on the Game Boy. Now, history with that one, I know we have obviously the newer release of it, but we'll get that in a second. What have you played it, Eric?
So the original Link's Awakening, no, I have never played it. Um, Zelda is like a franchise I didn't really get around to until like Twilight Princess, and we'll get around to that later. So I didn't really have much experience with the earlier titles,
Yeah.
but I have played some of them. But the OG Link's Awakening and then Link's Awakening DX on the Game Boy Color is not something I've touched. And
Okay.
frankly, I kind of feel like I don't need to nowadays.
It's yeah, so that was an interesting Link's Awakening is an interesting one because I it was a step back from, in my opinion, from like A Link to the Past.
Yeah.
I didn't really vibe with the whole theme of it. I remember playing it on, getting a Game Boy Color, and I had that when it came out, and it was Pokemon Yellow, and there was that game as well. And I my brother got it, and I tried it out for like maybe an hour, and I was like, I can't do this. This is. I just didn't like the way it was, like the way it controlled and the way it was designed. It just didn't gel with me.
Yeah, from like what I know about like one playing the remake, and then two, like from what I hear about it, like you get given so many items, and like I believe you can only like put an item on one button on the original Game Boy version. So
Yeah.
you're constantly in the menus just like swapping out items and stuff like that. So it gets like pretty annoying from what I hear.
So the fact for this one is Japan got a 16-bit remake of the original NES game for Legend of Zelda that we did not. So, the owners of Satellaview peripheral for Super Famicom system got quite a treat in 1990s. 16-bit remix version of the original Legend of Zelda, complete with voice acting. Wild. I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, like a lot of like Japan stuff, like when they got access to the internet, like they experimented with a lot of that stuff like in the early days of gaming, where like the SNES, or not the SNES, the Famicom, as it was called over there, had like the Satellaview you were talking about, and that was like just you connected to broadcast, broadcast TV or whatever and stuff like that, and you would get like daily updates on stuff. It was like pretty wild.
Yeah, and that links into the next releases, BS The Legend of Zelda, right? August 1995, Satellaview. I have no history with this. I didn't play it. Never played it.
I don't think there was any way you could have been
Yeah,
able to.
I would be super interested to see if there's a preserved copy somewhere of this in some way, just to try it out. This goes with the next two here. They're both Satellaview releases. Legend of Zelda Triforce of the Gods, March 1997, also on Satellaview, as well as the Legend of Zelda Ancient Stone Tablets, March 1997, same release date. So yeah, I have no history with those ones, obviously. But again, I would have liked to have seen those to see how they turned out and see. Thoughts are arguably that those are better versions of the originals that were released. So next on the list is big one, Ocarina of Time, 1998 November.
Listen.
Exactly. You had Navi, right? Who
I spent
was
a
just
minute
a treat.
downloading things for the soundboard. You're welcome.
I appreciate that, man. This one, I don't know. I guess I'll just go. This was probably the game I spent the most with on like N64, and we got it. It must have been release date. It must have been release date because I just remember everyone being like super excited about it. We went to the store and like it was just a whole different time back then, honestly. We must have played. I'm surprised the thing didn't light on fire or melt by the time that we were done playing that damn thing. I'd probably beaten that game an easy 10 to 15 times, an easy. And so like you could pretty much put me in front of that game and I could play through it without any problem nowadays. Obviously no like speed running, but it was one of those ones that like of speed running, if I was ever to do one, it would probably be that game because I just know it so well. Eric, yeah, what's your history of this game?
As a child, I watched a playthrough of Ocarina of Time on the 3DS by my favorite old school YouTuber at the time. I thought it looked really cool. It made me sad that I didn't have a 3DS.
Dang.
I just want to point out that you said as a child,
Yeah.
you watched a YouTuber for Ocarina of Time 3D, and I was just like, what the fuck? I was in high school by the time
3D.
the
Yeah.
3DS came out.
Oh, it makes me so old. Eric, what's your history with it?
I thought he was gonna say something like, "Oh yeah, I watched someone while play the original one." No, he said 3D. I'm like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, I was about to say.
No, but
3DS is a better version, obviously, but
yeah. Ocarina of Time, I played. It was another one of those that was on the Masterpiece section on Super Smash Bros. Brawl. It had like a 5-minute timer, so you really couldn't play much of Ocarina of Time, honestly, in that 5 minutes. But before Skyward Sword came out, I downloaded the Virtual Console version on the Wii and played that with a GameCube controller because I didn't have like the classic controller or anything like that. Um, and yeah, played it through all the way, and like yeah, like absolutely loved it. It's such a great game. It's obviously like the biggest classic that Nintendo probably put out for Zelda. Like it's the most probably like the most well known Zelda game, I would probably say. And yeah, like it's I really want to play the 3D version. Like I've always wanted to for the longest time. I just never got around to doing it. And like I know they added like the Master Quest mode in the 3DS version. It's also in like there's like also like a GameCube release of it that I forget. I think you were supposed to like pre-order Wind Waker back in the day,
Yeah.
and you get like a special bonus disc for it, and that also came with Master Mode. So like I never got around to that as well, but yeah, like Ocarina of Time obviously had like the as a huge influence on the series and like well deserved because like that game is solid. I don't know
Yeah.
if it like holds up exactly today because like runs like at
Some
20 frames a second like
yeah.
on the original hardware, even on the virtual console. But like if you were like, hey, play Ocarina of Time right now, I'd be like, yeah, sure, why not? I'll do it.
Right. Yeah, with that one, um let's see if we can find this. So, we can get another. Link is based on Peter Pan, kind of. Link wears a green tunic, hangs out with the fairies, and has pointy ears. Game designer Shigeru Miyamoto has said in interviews that his team turned to Disney characters for inspiration. I think that's maybe a bit of a logical leap, but we'll go with it.
Nintendo
also,
and Disney, two companies that love to fuck over others for taking their IP.
I
At
know,
odds.
right? Awkward.
And Ocarina of Time is the moment where the timeline gets all weird because this is where it splits off.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you have the future hero and the one that goes back to the past to try to change things. And then what? There's a one that's like with Link's death.
Yeah,
Like the dark future or whatever the heck.
yeah, like the three splits are like the hero is defeated, the hero is triumphant, and then the adult timeline which says Ganon is sealed away.
Yeah. Yeah, and things get really hairy here.
Yeah, it gets
This is where they have to make a lot of like again, with our logical leaps here to get to where you need to be for I guess current day releases.